is off limits. You were advised to jump to safe harbor immediately. Let me check my logs. Alright, you can proceed. We'll let them know you're on your way down.
I pride myself on knowing everyone on this world, and I don't know you. You're with the collection team then, I presume. Either that, or you're one deeply unlucky trespasser. Vanguard, eh? Brief said you were an eclectic group. You must have really shined out on the fringe to get assigned a task like this. Ah, then this must be the rest of your outfit.
Commander Hatum,
No need for introductions, Major Sanon. Dr. Walker, your reputations precede you, as does the urgency of your mission, so I'll get to it. Now, Londinian is one of the most dangerous places in the Milky Way. It's with good reason my soldiers and I do everything we can to avoid entering the city. Terramorphs are omnipresent, and the structural damage left behind when Major Sanon's father bombed its spaceport has turned large swathes of the metropolis into a decaying labyrinth. As such, we'll be providing you all with gear, information, and uploading municipal unlock codes to your robot. Every tool you could need to succeed out there. Except one. Once you're on the other side of those barriers, you will be on your own. If you get into trouble, my people will not be coming. Do we understand each other? The initial Terramorph outbreak that overran Londinian during the tail end of the Colony War came as a complete shock. Waves of the creatures appeared out of nowhere, and the city was quickly overwhelmed. There were some attempts at evacuation, but Ve Victus decided more definitive action was merited. He ordered the spaceport to be bombed, ensuring no other ships could leave the city, halting the spread of the outbreak but leaving large sections in ruins and condemning countless lives. And the intervening 20 years have only made Londinian more hostile, not less. So my people will not be coming for you out there. Understood? Terramorphs, and plenty of them, outside our little sanctuary here, much of the planet is theirs. For that reason, we keep our trips into the city to a minimum. That also means our intel becomes largely historical once you go much beyond the defenses. It's also why I want to make sure I'm being crystal clear. Out there, you're on your own. We are unwanted guests on this planet, and, as a rule, I don't put my people in any more risk than is absolutely necessary. We've got it hard enough out here. So, no, there will be no cavalry sweeping into the rescue. Precisely. I'll leave you to your preparations then. You can find your equipment in our armory, base of the tower just outside. And I do believe there's someone waiting for you there, Captain. Now, once you're outside the base, it's my personal suggestion you make a beeline to the nearby Aceles plant. It contains one of our field caches. Though I can't guarantee it won't contain anything else. I hope you all find what you're looking for out there. Robot, you're coming with me.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Commander. Percival, you all set to hook into their comms tower?
Should only take a few minutes. Let's get this done and get the hell out of here.
Percival will be scanning the city for our samples from here. When he finds one, he'll transmit the coordinates to us out in the field.
Pinpoint's a bit strong.
The equipment will be able to get us a rough location of any acceptable samples in the scan area. It'll be up to you, Kaiser, and I to find the things. All right. Head over to the armory and gear up. Once you're done, we'll meet by the entrance to the city. All set on your gear? Are you ready to do this? Yeah, just pre-mission jitters. You hear about a place for so long, it maybe gets bigger in your head than it should be. But you don't need to worry about me. I'll be all right. Now, are we doing this or not? Then let's get this show on the road. Kaiser? Percival, everything green on your ends?
I am ready.
Personal comm should be routed through Kaiser now. You copy that?
Roger, loud and clear.
Perhaps too loud.
Oh, you're a riot robot.
Kaiser, kick it off.
Samples secure.
Nice work. Now, Earlier scan picked up a valid Terramorph sample, but, well, it's in the spaceport. And the quick route there looks like it got blasted when the port did.
There are steam tunnels under the city, which will allow us to access the spaceport.
What do you... That's right. Kaiser, how did you know that?
I am not sure.
Percival, you see any better option?
Not from where I'm standing.
Then we've got our answer.
Kaiser, this flora, this is Lazarus plant, isn't it?
Confirmed.
You know, no one even realized it was a living thing until someone got it under a microscope and saw it had cells. Can't be cultivated anywhere but Londinian. A real marvel. My God, look at it. A Lazarus in bloom. You know, we might be some of the only... What's happening? Captain, are you seeing this? You just saw that, right? You would tell me if I was losing my mind. That heat leech became a terramorph. The pests that have snuck onto every planet are baby terramorphs. Heat leeches hide out in ships, sneak away after landing, and then, with time, they transform. We just found out how terramorphs move between planets. That I don't have an answer for right now. But if they share a genome, like most nymphs and adults do, the microbe should have no problem dealing with heat leeches and terramorphs. The Aciles we'll have to look into. But given what we know about the creatures, I wouldn't be shocked to find that they've got an appetite for both. No, Lazarus plants can't grow anywhere but here, let alone blossom. People have tried. Plus, if what we just witnessed was happening anywhere else, well, it wouldn't just be Londinian lost to these things. What we just saw, it must be some kind of alternate growth method. One that winnows 70 years of maturation into seconds. It's incredible. Pretty major is right. But if what we just saw, if that's possible, the Lazarus plant, it's clearly an accelerant for the terramorph, a heat leech transformation process. Make one into the other in an instant. But that means if anyone knew about this, they could trigger a terramorph spawning. You could sneak a leech into a city, or even multiple leeches, into a place like New Atlantis. Good God. The attack on New Atlantis, could someone have set that up? But first, you'd have to know the truth about all this.
Well, we're never gonna know if you don't catch that thing. Get after it!
It is a match. This suggests with high certainty that the Lazarus plant was used to trigger the attacks on both planets.
There's no way a plant this rare, this fragile, just shows up here, New Atlantis, and Tau Ceti. The transformations on those worlds, they must have been triggered by human hands. Captain, do you understand what it is we just stumbled on here? Exactly. Someone saw the Lazarus plant in action and used it to trigger the attacks.
I wonder where they could have gotten such an idea, deploying alien life forms as weapons.
I wouldn't be shocked to find out our team, in part, inspired the approach, but our group never dealt with something that could have an effect like this. Makes some sense, actually. Tau Ceti was likely their first test, someplace remote where no one would question a few settlers going missing. Ensure the big show, the attack on New Atlantis, would be a success. And the timing of that one, it couldn't have been just luck that it happened right when we were asking the cabinet to do something about the terramorphs. These attacks, I think someone planned them to set all this in motion. It can't. At least, I didn't think it could. But maybe if we're right about this, someone found a way. They certainly were. But having this answer, well, it raises a couple big questions. Who could pull something like this off? And why?
Let's save the discussion for when you all aren't standing in the universe's closest equivalent to hell frozen over. If we're gonna do anything to prevent more Terramorph attacks, human cause or otherwise, we need that final sample.
Roger that. Kaiser, get us into the spaceport?
The entrance is this way. I am unable to provide sufficient power to the lock mechanism.
Anyone got ideas where we could get some extra juice?
Local power looks like it was controlled in the security office. Upper floor.
Captain and I can scout it out. Kaiser, see if you can't find another way to get it open.
Roger that.
Back in business.
Warning. Emergency recorder message detected. Transcription process engaged. Playback initiated.
Admiral Sanon, we need to make the evacuation request.
That's my father he's addressing. He was here? Didn't think he'd have the guts to look those soldiers in the eye before blowing this place to pieces.
Admiral!
It just transformed. An invisible weapon. No planet would be safe. Colonel, the troops that closed off the sewers after my evaluation, they're all in this facility.
Other than our casualties? Yes, sir.
Good. Get them into defensive positions around the spaceport. No one leaves. I'll send ships as soon as possible.
Thank God. None of us wanted to go down swarmed by those things.
That won't be your fate, Colonel. You have my word.
Transcription complete. Physical copy available.
An invisible weapon. He knew. He knew about the Lazarus plant. Grab that recording. We should talk. Hey, Victus. He destroyed this place. Killed these people to keep what he knew about the Lazarus plant and the Terramorphs and all this a secret. Didn't he? You heard that recording. He saw the potential of the plant as a weapon and hid it away. He killed those people to keep them from sharing what they might have seen. Condemned this whole city to death. He's...
I sincerely hope you are not suggesting he was justified in his actions. I would not wish to associate with someone who felt he did the right thing.
A calculated loss. These soldiers for the rest of the galaxy. That sounds exactly like what my father would do. But it doesn't, it can't justify slaughter. But if the plant was used to trigger the attacks, could Faye Victus have been involved in the massacre on New Atlantis?
What? They, Victus, alive? All this time? And somehow in a position where he could be responsible for what happened in New Atlantis? This is precisely why I cannot stand the United Colonies. They pretend at moral superiority, but look what they actually do.
And even if he wasn't directly involved, I guarantee he knows something. But I guess we're not getting any more answers right now. Come on, let's go get that last sample.
Final sample secure.
All wrapped up. Time to get the hell out of here. Percival, you should unplug and find somewhere we can talk. Privately.
On it. See you soon.
Look at all of you. Back from the underworld. Got pretty frantic on the comms towards the end there. But it sounded like this was a success. Got everything we need to put this plan in motion. Can't be positive until we run some tests. But knowing that the Terramorphs have been masquerading as heat leeches all this time is a big find. Arguably makes things more feasible, now that we know what we're dealing with, not less.
Agreed. Plus, I don't think you're gonna have to push real hard to get folks on board with cleaning up one of the galaxy's greatest pests if this is what they're capable of.
But none of that's getting done without the samples. You do have them, right? Hey, was worried about that myself, though I know I wasn't nearly as much at risk of limb loss as you all were. Now, my connection might have gotten a bit fuzzy there, but do I have it right that Ve Victus knew about this damn plant?
That's what it sounded like.
Guess the old Admiral must have told someone what he learned. Even he's not clever enough to pull off an attack like that from the great beyond.
It's a bit more complicated than that.
I'm sorry, what? He's pulling my leg, right? Adrian?
No, I don't believe he is.
So that means we have a suspect.
I believe that's exactly what that means. Look, Captain. Percival and we need to get these samples back to the lab. Ensure we'll be able to handle cleaning up the leeches as well as the Terramorphs. But Ve Victus is the only solid lead we've got on the attacks. Since you're the only one who knows where he is, can you speak to him? See if you can get him to cough up anything he might know. Captain, I truly don't. He's already shown he's taken an interest in you. I'll be a lot more useful in the lab right now than I would be grilling Francois. So do you think you could do it? Please? Plenty of people out there with grudges against the UC, but he's the only one we know had any knowledge of the Lazarus plant. So right now, it's the only option we've got. Will you do it? Good. We'll all meet back at Mast, outside the cabinet chambers. They're gonna want to know everything we've uncovered here. Best of luck, Captain. And thank you for dealing with him.
Need me somewhere? Yeah, works for me. About as well as you'd expect. I still can't shake the feeling they're around every corner. Every time we run into a hostile ship, I'm sure it's them. The trip I was on when they kidnapped me was only my second time flying as a professional pilot. It was a pretty crappy way to start my dream job. It was terrifying. I had no idea whether they were going to kill me or not. And I couldn't tell if my distress signal had worked either. I was sure I'd never see my family again. I kept thinking about my dad's getting a message about my death and that I'd never say goodbye to them. Ecliptic could tell they were getting to me too. I think they got a kick out of it. That made it so much worse. Honestly, I was trying to impress Jane. I was recommended for the job as her cargo pilot, and I wanted to prove I was the right choice. Pretty stupid, right? If I'd known the ship was stolen, I never would have taken the job. Neither of us counted on Ecliptic showing up. Oh. Okay, I'll try. The whole thing must seem kind of silly to an experienced pilot like you, huh? That's fine with me. That's right. Ever since I was a kid. I grew up working the spaceport in Aquila, so I spent a lot of time around starships. I always thought flying one would be the most amazing feeling in the world. Pilots can go anywhere they want as long as they have the fuel to get there. Talk about freedom. Oh man, does it ever? I love space. I can't imagine a job I'd rather have long term. I think I still have a ways to go before I'm ready to fly solo again, though. It was amazing. I was 14 the first time I rode a starship, but I remember it perfectly. The feeling of leaving Aquila's atmosphere really stuck with me. It's been years, but I still get a little misty-eyed when I think about it. Yeah, I know. My experience with Ecliptic taught me that. Hopefully nothing like that happens again. I'm not sure I'd make it out a second time. Actually, I did my training in New Atlantis. I grew up hearing stories about it, and I wanted to see what it would be like to live there. Leaving Aquila was the right decision, but I still miss my family. I'd like to move back to the Cheyenne system someday, so we can stay in touch more easily. That's a tough question. I think the UC takes better care of its citizens in a lot of ways. Healthcare, government programs, things like that. But you can't do much in the UC without feeling like someone's breathing down your neck about it. Especially in New Atlantis. Kinda creeps me out a little, to be honest. We learned basic piloting skills first, along with ship maintenance. Most people left after we covered simple combat maneuvers and grav drives. But not me. I took some classes on how to fly cargo ships, since that's what I always saw myself doing. I graduated top of my class from that program. I guess I should have stuck around for the advanced combat classes, too. Maybe Ecliptic would have left me alone if I was better with the ship's weapons. I hope you get the chance to visit your family more often than I do. I'm sure they miss you too. Yeah, me too. Looking over my shoulder all the time is pretty draining. Thanks for caring, Captain. Sure. There isn't that much to tell. It's just me and my dad's. I don't have any siblings or anything. Both of them work the spaceport in Aquila like I used to. They're great. They encouraged me to pursue piloting even when I told them it would mean leaving home. I'd love to surprise them someday by flying my own ship to the Aquila spaceport, taking them for a ride. Neither of them has ever left the planet. They've seen how badly it can go. They both have loads of stories about wrecked ships limping into the Aquila spaceport with injured people aboard. Or worse. I guess they just don't think space travel's worth losing their family over. Not exactly. I used to read Solomon Coe's Aquila Adventures and the Freestar Captain's Log when I was a kid. That's where I got the idea. The magazines made space travel look so cool and adventurous. I just knew I had to get out there and experience it for myself. No, I didn't. I'd love to talk to them about it, but I don't want them to worry. If they knew I had that kind of experience my first day as a professional pilot, I'm sure they'd beg me to come home. I think so too. But I definitely want more time in the cockpit before I take my family anywhere. It's one thing to risk your own life on space travel, but it's a whole different story once you bring your family into it. It was real nice talking to you.
I'm glad to see you looking well. Yes, that's all right with me. I'd be happy to tell you more about myself. I call myself an experimental theologian. I have a particular interest in the relationship between quantum physics, probability, and the divine. My beliefs have primarily been shaped by reading the works of ancient astronomers, like Johannes Kepler, Isaac Newton, and Galileo Galilei. A bit of a mouthful, I know. That's why I think it's important to write it all down in a book. Unfortunately not. My mothers chose the last name when they married to honor their shared love of astronomy. I've always considered Johannes Kepler to be something like my guardian angel. I often turn to his writings when I need a new perspective on my own studies. It's an honor to carry his name through the Starfield. I've always thought he'd be awed by how far humanity has come. Mainly through observation. My prized possession as a child was my telescope. I spent hours watching the stars. As I got older, I became fascinated with the mathematics behind what I was seeing, and began to study the works of classical astronomers. My interest in a divine mathematician evolved from their theories about sacred geometry. I believe in something I call the divine mathematician. It's a theory borrowed from those ancient astronomers I mentioned. In essence, I believe that the laws of science govern our daily lives, but that those laws were planned and set in motion by a higher power. I had a feeling you might. I get the impression you've been touched by something otherworldly. I imagine that would shape anyone's perspective. Nowhere you've heard of. My mothers were listers. They raised me on a small planet in the Narian system. We called it Avalon. LIST is an acronym. It's short for League of Independent Settlers. It's a term for homesteaders who strike out on their own rather than settling in a city. I've met plenty on my travels. They always have remarkable stories to share. Remembering them always makes me smile. Their names were Brenda and Lynette, and they were travelers like me. They met by chance at the Deimos Star Yard and fell in love at first sight. They abandoned their careers shortly after to join LIST and travel together. After they'd established a homestead on Avalon, they traveled to New Atlantis to adopt me. I have, and I'm grateful for it. To live an explorer's life has been an extraordinary privilege. I'll have more than enough interesting stories to tell in my book. I'd be happy to. Avalon holds a very special place in my heart. It's a beautiful place that's covered in lakes and almost always shrouded in mist. My mothers thought it resembled the mythological kingdom of Avalon from the Arthurian legends. That's where we got the name. It certainly looked the part. Growing up there felt like living in a storybook. I used to hunt for fairies on the shores near our home. In a sense, they're buried there, side by side on the hill that overlooks our old homestead. They wouldn't have it any other way. I never minded being alone. I enjoy the company of my thoughts and those of the authors whose books I read. Exploring Avalon with a book under my arm as a child set me up perfectly for a life of scholarship. We were, but it wasn't unusual to be attacked by passing spacers. Luckily, we built our homestead sturdy enough to keep them out. My mother's always prepared for the worst. It's the only way to live when you're on your own. They assured that I knew how to defend myself from a young age. No, I'm afraid that's impossible. The legends say you need a fairy to guide you there, and I never did manage to catch one. In all seriousness, I promised my mothers that I'd keep Avalon's location a secret. It was our special place. They didn't want to share it. I left to begin my studies. It seemed to me like the Starsea was the most reasonable place to find answers about the universe and the divine. Leaving was a difficult decision, but I don't regret it. I found no shortage of material for my book out here in the space lanes. It's going to be a philosophical text, explaining my theories about science and divinity. I'm writing it as a means of preserving my way of thinking for future scholars. To tell you the truth, traveling with you has given me more clarity than I expected. It's obvious that you're an agent of something bigger than yourself. Watching you fulfill that destiny up close has given me a new appreciation for how a single life can be shaped by cosmic forces. Thank you, Captain. I appreciate that. Whether I find what I'm looking for or not, I'm grateful to be traveling with you. I haven't enjoyed myself this much in a long time. What would you like to know? Yes, that does ring a bell. Decades ago, I met a man called Irvin in New Atlantis who spoke at length about an explorers collective with that name. He said they were searching for truth among the stars. I was fascinated. Irvin offered to introduce me to the other members, but it wasn't meant to be. The Colony War broke out shortly after we spoke, and I never heard from him again. No, I didn't. Irvin's silence felt like a sign from the universe that I was meant to pursue my studies without outside influence. Oh, that's a real shame. I'm sorry to hear it. He was one of the most vibrant and interesting people I've ever met. Oh, what a waste the colony war was. I've been dabbling in astrology. Not the answer you'd expect from a student of physics, I assume. I'm treating it as a history lesson and as research for my book. Most of the ancient astronomers I've studied were astrologers, too. They read astrological charts to predict how the planet's movements might affect their lives. It's fascinating to read about, but I've had difficulty practicing it myself. Every astrological text I have references the Sol system's stars as seen from Earth. I suppose no one told the ancient Babylonians their astrological methodologies would need to account for a spacefaring society. That was a nice discussion.
If there's any work that needs doing, you know I'm happy to take it on. If you want, Captain. I have. More than I expected, to tell the truth. I really thought that my faith died with Emmeline, but being out here has changed my perspective. Emmeline believed that everything in the universe is connected, that it's all sacred. So I started looking for the connections, like she taught me. Turns out, she's everywhere. The planets, the stars, the people. Everything has a bit of Emmeline in it. That's my idea of a holy universe. I do. That scar is gonna take a lot longer to heal than the others. But the guild doesn't weigh so heavily on me anymore, at least. Comets. Emmeline had a kind of a thing about comets. When I was a kid, she told me they were the ghosts of stars that had gone out. And every time we see one, I imagine her spirit riding along with it, wherever it's going. I'd tell her I loved her. I've been saying it into the void every day in case she's listening, but it'd be nice to say it again, face to face. I think so too. She loved space so much. Knowing that I saw her in it after she was gone would make her smile.
Hey, how's it going? Sure, what's on your mind? Hey, thanks for asking. Things are going great for my family back on Titan. In her last message, my mom told me 2 of my brothers just took jobs with Trident. With cushy jobs like that, they'll be able to send money home like I do. Between the 3 of us, my mom and the kids can finally afford to move to Jemison. I told her I'd visit more if she lived in New Atlantis, so I expect her to be on the next ship out. Thought you'd never ask, boss. I'm always happy to talk shop. I've been working on my collection since I was a kid. It's kind of my baby. I have rocks and minerals from all over the settled systems. Collected most of them myself, too. When I was a kid, one of our neighbors had a subscription to Mining Monthly, and she used to give me the magazines when she was done with them. Even before I could read, I loved looking at the pictures. I used to tear out the photos of minerals and crystals and hang them on my wall. Eventually, that stopped lighting me up, so I started looking for the real thing. Turns out Titan's a decent place to cut your teeth as a rock collector. Oh, it's gotta be the fossils. I always wanted to find one as a kid, but I was out of luck hunting for them on Titan. You see them a lot as a miner, though. After a while, I had so many of them that Lynn wouldn't let me bring any more onto our ship. So, I started leaving the extras underground, on uninhabitable planets. Figured that'd give some scientists a good shock. Gotta keep the paleontologists on their toes, you know? Boy, am I glad to be traveling with a person of taste. Now, most people just roll their eyes when I start talking about my collection. But you and I both know they've got their heads screwed on backwards, don't we? I mean, geology, it totally rocks. I cracked myself up. Sounds good.
Haven't seen you around here before. Welcome to the den. Reina Marquez. I head up the Vanguard station here. Good to see another Vanguard pilot. You assigned here, or just passing through? Right. Okay. Good. Was afraid I'd gotten another transfer without any warning. Nothing against you personally, of course. I'd just like to know who I'm responsible for before they show up on my doorstep. You need anything? Say the word. We're short on luxuries here, but for a fellow Vanguard, I'll do what I can to help. The same thing we do everywhere else. Fill in the gaps for the UC Navy. Help keep the settled systems peaceful and safe. Sometimes it's a little bit of a challenge all the way out here, but we try our best. I wouldn't mind a little more support from New Atlantis, but I know things are tough all over. Might be counterintuitive, but no. No, we don't. It's pretty quiet, and some of us deal with that better than others. We get the occasional distress call. Sometimes Varun stirs up trouble, but there's a lot of downtime. I'm not complaining, but others, like Bastion there, it's not what he was expecting. Certainly not what he wanted. Oh gosh, no. Vanguard wasn't even a thought back when this place was first built. The Den, the original Den, mind you, got blown up during the Serpent's Crusade. UC Navy immediately rebuilt the station, I think largely out of spite. Sometimes I think that's why they keep it operational too. Certainly hasn't had much real purpose since the Colony War ended. I'm glad we have it as a post, and Marcel and the Trade Authority do some decent business, which I try very hard not to pay attention to. But the station has never recaptured that old glory. Don't think it ever will, really.
Well, what a pleasant surprise. When I heard you and Hadrian were headed for Londinian of all places, I presumed you must be onto something big. Did you find what you were looking for? I haven't been to Londinian in many years. Why? Is there some way I could be of assistance? Were you able to recover what you were looking for? Good news, then. So, what exactly are you doing here? Plenty still to be done in defeating the Terramorphs, no? Did you? Well, I don't know what you think you heard on this recording, but I sincerely hope you didn't come to the wrong conclusions. After all, given the Cabinet's current state of anxiety, they might misinterpret such a discovery to mean I could have been involved with the attacks. Perhaps I can convince you to keep this among us. Of course. Do I look like I'm in any position to do what you're describing? So I'd very much appreciate your agreement to not share what you found. We wouldn't want anyone else jumping to conclusions now, would we? You know, you're far more clever than I expected. You want to hear the words, then? I did it. The Terramorph attacks on Tau Ceti, New Atlantis, my doing. Years of coordination between my associate and I, figuring out how to deploy the Lazarus plant's pollen outside of Londinian, learning to synthesize it, use it as a weapon. Now, being as clever as you are, I'm sure you have thoughts on why I might do such a thing. All in due time. First, I want to see if you're truly as astute as you appear. So why would someone like me go through all this trouble? You couldn't be more right. The attacks were a correction. When I discovered the plant, I did consider handing over what I'd found, but we were at war. And I couldn't risk information that dangerous falling into the wrong hands. So I ordered the bombing of the Londinian spaceport. fixing two problems at once. Halting the spread of the city's terramorph outbreak, and sealing away knowledge of the plant's potential. These were the final days of the colony war, Captain. The Freestar Collective had spies everywhere. I was concerned that if word got out, the Collective could swoop down, start breeding Lazarus plants, and overrun our worlds with waves of terramorphs. Just like what was happening on Londinian at that very moment. Sealing off the city to prevent mass death? It was the only option that made sense at the time. It's easy to judge now. In that moment, I wasn't about to add another dangerous variable to an already catastrophic war. But then, as the war ended, my trial, my execution, I made a decision. After all, I'd given everything for the colonies. My life as I knew it included. And what did I get in return? Was there any effort by the UC to protect my legacy? My daughter's legacy? No. We were sacrificed when all we did was serve. So I kept what I'd learned and arranged the attacks to set things right again. My daughter, she becomes a hero. I become a trusted advisor, having found Kaiser, the research team, and cement my new position of influence when I hand them the name of the person responsible for the attack on New Atlantis. The dear departed Dr. Reginald Orlays, the associate who aided me all these years, and whom I always slated to take the fall. What luck he was stopped dead before he could hurt anyone else. His decades on the run brought to an end by another unlikely hero. You. Can't remember the many lives you've taken. Orlays was the man whose death you brought about around the moon of Etheria, the pilot of the Warlock, the man I had to eliminate, to hide my secret. It wasn't easy. But the beauty of being loathed is that people will do whatever they can not to deal with you. They wanted to pretend I didn't exist. And so I used their blind eye to my advantage. Still, establishing a back channel to Orlays via the UC recovery teams was painstaking work. I've led campaigns less nerve-wracking. They believed they were luring in wanted criminals, but were in fact delivering precisely encoded slates, filled with instructions invisible to any but their recipient, dropped off at just the right moments to fall into the proper hands. All without the UC realizing whom you were actually dealing with. Slow work. But as you can see, ultimately effective. Why would I want to be in the good graces of the people who control my very life? I don't know, Captain. Maybe I still dream of a life outside these walls someday. A new face would be needed, of course, but it wasn't an impossibility. Though now, I'm not so sure. Captain, please. You've benefited here as much as I have. Maybe more. It's why I had Orlays reprogram Kaiser. Had that old machine guide you to where I found the plant all those years ago. I went to great lengths to ensure your and Hadrian's success. And look at the results. I know for a fact the Cabinet's planning to honor both you and Hadrian once this is all done. Isn't that preferable to languishing away in obscurity? Running jobs on the tail end of nowhere for the Vanguard? With only the vague hopes of perhaps earning the right to buy a home in the well someday. I'm simply looking for you to acknowledge the truth. And let's not forget the importance of our actual endgame. Eliminating the Terramorphs. Securing knowledge of the Lazarus plant. What we've set in motion is going to protect thousands, maybe millions of lives. I'm simply requesting one more life be protected. Mine. I've already sent along the evidence of Orleza's role in the attacks to the cabinet, leaving out my own involvement. All I ask is that you confirm as much to the cabinet. Tell them that it was Orlez and Orlez alone. After all, I do still have a long list of threats to the UC. This needn't be the end of our good works together. And how many have you killed to get where you are now? There are no great works that don't cost lives, Captain. Whether it's winning a war, or digging a tram tunnel. So we sacrificed a few dozen in the attacks to possibly protect millions. That seems like a fair exchange to me. I only hope you'll see the same, and leave my name out of the discussions to come. That is a pity, Captain. But I'm in no position to negotiate. Though we needn't be enemies, you and I. Just think about the opportunity I've provided here. There are more on the horizon. If you do the right thing.
Perfect timing. We just got in. So on our end, good news. The microbe and the acyles are both as effective against heat leeches as they are against terramorphs.
Means either plan should work for clearing those critters off our worlds.
Considering what the Lazarus plant is capable of, I don't think we can deal with those things fast enough. I already sent along info to the cabinet to get them up to speed. So what about your end? Did you find anything? Did my father tell you what he knew about the Lazarus plant? I knew it. The second I heard that recording, I knew. Why? Did he say why he did it? It takes some deeply twisted logic to think anything did more harm to the Sanan name than him.
Somehow, after all that has transpired, he still believes himself to be the hero. He created this whole situation just so others would see him the way he sees himself. But all it has done is further expose him for what he really is.
Well, once we inform the cabinet, they can ensure he won't be able to do anything like this ever again. My hope would be that whatever connections he's got to the outside world disappear. Make sure his future schemes and machinations stay in his cell with him. But honestly, I'm not sure. He's in a unique position, and has done a special kind of harm to the colonies. Exactly. Bring justice to everyone he's hurt. So I guess that gives us our final answer. Nothing left to do but head in and see what the cabinet thinks of it all. Unless there was more to discuss. This might be our last opportunity to talk things through before the cabinet weighs in on a decision regarding the Terramorphs. Acyles aren't hostile to humans, but they are megafauna. If someone decides to pick a fight with one, it could get ugly. But they've already been spread far and wide once before when the UC was raising them as livestock, so the risk of introducing them to new worlds is minimal. Using them to clean up the terramorphs and leeches, though, it's not going to be nearly as expedient as the microbe would be. Given what we know now about the Lazarus plant, the speed of the job does matter. But going with the acyles, we're at least dealing with known risks. It's hard to know. Unlike my father, the cabinet aren't butchers. But killing UC citizens, along with everything else he's done, is unforgivable. But if you're really that concerned, you could request they be lenient. They might be willing to spare him. They are.
Microbe needed minimal adjustment to account for heat leech anatomy.
And the Aseles seem like they're even better at tracking leeches than morphs.
Hell of a sight to watch, though, when they catch 'em. Like an open airlock guzzling angry spaghetti. Microbe is gonna make the cleanup a whole lot quicker. If we're concerned about this Lazarus plant getting deployed again, that's the way to go.
The cabinet can secure the Lazarus plant, and then we're not risking any surprises when it comes to dealing with a microbe.
You're being paranoid. You know the science. You know we can make this safe.
I do know the science. I also know math, and a 1 in a million chance of a mutation isn't 0. So I guess we're still in discussion. Probably best at this point to let the cabinet weigh in, see if they have a preference. And here we go.
Welcome back, all of you. I wish we were meeting under better circumstances. But according to Hadrian's report, and the second one I just received, it seems the Terramorph attack on New Atlantis was no random occurrence, but a planned strike. Is what I'm reading here true?
My God.
An attack? Using terramorphs? How is that possible?
You will all receive a full briefing once we're done here. So then, is what the second report claims correct? Did Reginald Orlays commit these attacks, Captain?
Orlays? It's true, ma'am. I heard the recording myself. My father figured out how to use terramorphs as weapons.
He did what?
That's impossible. He doesn't have the kind of access to...
Clearly, he made his own access, Chief Sarkin. Madam President, I have been saying for years that not dealing with that man was gonna end in tragedy.
Enough! I hope everyone here understands that what has just been shared is a state secret of the highest order. This information does not leave this room. Now, that's quite the accusation you're leveling, considering Francois Sinon has not left containment for the better part of 2 decades. You have evidence to back this up?
It just transformed. A terramorph out of thin air. An invisible weapon. No planet would be safe.
Heavens help us. Is that actually him?
I'd know that voice anywhere. That's Francois.
He knew they could do this, and said nothing.
He's a sociopath. Plain and simple, ma'am.
Officer, please collect that recording.
Yes, ma'am. Begging your pardon, Captain.
We'll, of course, be launching a full investigation into how this could have happened. Though I have little doubt the Admiral will be quick to share all he knows on the subject once confronted with that recording. Chief Yassine, can you send one of your interrogators to have a little chat with the Admiral?
I'll issue the order immediately.
Good. Combined with everything else you all have uncovered. Well, I don't think the United Colonies can thank you enough. We failed the people of the colonies by not dealing with Vayvictus sooner. I intend to rectify that mistake immediately. That will be up to the cabinet to decide. But I don't appreciate our mercy being taken advantage of. That's truly disconcerting to hear. But cutting off Vayvictus's contact with the outside world is likely to be just the beginning of his punishment. I'm inclined to agree, Captain. Now, with our villain unmasked, we can attend to the other matters at hand. With the threads you've brought together here, the Lazarus plant, the attacks, the heat leeches, the 3 of you have likely spared thousands of lives. But it now falls to the cabinet to ensure this can never happen again. As such, the cabinet will be securing the Lazarus plant on Londinian. All materials related to the plant will be classified to ensure no one else learns its true nature.
A sound decision, Madam President.
Well, luckily the natural hostility of Londinian makes keeping out trespassers relatively easy. But we'll ensure its growth is contained, that access to the plant is only permitted via highly regulated clearances, and that our troop presence on Londinian is increased. We're already discussing the elimination of one species, Captain. Explain to me why you wish to eliminate another.
They are ultimately threatened as much as the United Colonies. To share what you know and what can be done to make us all safer can only foster good relations.
That is an idea with some merit to it. Decrease the likelihood of anything like this occurring again, and further relations between our two factions.
Two birds with a single stone. Very well. We'll include the collective in the removal process. Thank you for the suggestion, Captain. So then, to our final topic. The Cabinet has agreed to implement a plan that will deal with the Terramorph, and now also Heat Leech presence on human worlds. In fact, we've already begun enacting measures to check all UC ports and settlements for undiscovered nests. But we all understand this is only a partial solution. The project we're embarking on will be a long and difficult one. So our first step must be deciding how exactly this all will be handled.
Madam President, this microbe is clearly too much of a risk. The Aseles are the safer approach.
To someone with limited knowledge of biology, perhaps. The technology behind the microbe is solved science, Madam President. It isn't dangerous. Using it to wipe out the Terramorphs would be the quickest path to protecting humanity.
And fast results always lead to the best outcomes, don't they?
As you can see, there remains debate among the Cabinet. We were hoping your group might issue a recommendation. Major?
We've been having similar debates ourselves, but the captain has yet to weigh in.
I see. Captain, I know this may not be your area of expertise, but we'd like to know your take on the matter. I believe we have a responsibility to do something, yes. Heavens forbid, years from now, someone reopens the Pandora's box that Victis discovered. It falls to us to enact every measure required to ensure that day never comes.
I'm in full agreement. No need be delving into unpredictable sciences.
The first step in a bold new future.
Bolder, better, and brighter. Well, I need to write that one down for later.
Order, please. And Major Sinan? Dr. Walker, you'd find this acceptable?
We trust the captain's judgment.
Then the matter is settled. We'll begin the process immediately. Today marks day one for the United Colonies Terramorph Management Division, making you three the founding members of the TMD. As befits such a group, the Cabinet wanted to display its gratitude. Today, we will be adding 3 new Class 1 citizens to our ranks.
Class 1? For the 3 of us? Are you joking?
What he means to say is, thank you, ma'am.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, ma'am.
You all have earned it. Now, there's much to be done. Major Sinan, Dr. Walker, I hope you two are willing to continue your efforts spearheading the TMD's research on Mars.
We'd be honored, ma'am.
As for you, Captain, the Vanguard will be providing much of the on-the-ground support for the TMD. As a member of both the Vanguard and the TMD, I believe you'll have your pick of duties. Speak to your commander. Tuala, if I recall correctly. He should be able to provide you with assignments going forward, plus help you collect the benefits that come with being named Class 1. On behalf of the whole of the United Colonies, you have our sincerest gratitude. This meeting is adjourned.
Well, well, I've got to say, this is a first. I've never had a Class 1 citizen in my ranks before. Congratulations, Captain. It's a high honor. Have to do something big for the colonies to earn that sort of designation. Only ever met a couple myself, and certainly never given one orders. You should be real proud. No need to thank me. You brought this all on yourself. I've already gone ahead and processed your Class 1 benefits. All UC goods and services should now have a thanks for protecting the colonies discount. And the credits should be in your accounts now. But to get into your penthouse, you'll have to pay a visit to the Aphelion Realty office. They should be able to grant you access. Just out the front door and across the plaza, by the embassies. Look for the Aphelion sign. Higher-ups wanted to make sure you know how much they appreciate what you've done. But with all that squared, it's time to get you a new assignment. There are your standard Vanguard missions, putting those pilot skills to use defending UC space. Or you could help the TMD in cleaning up terramorphs. Oh, and I got a request from Dr. Walker. Wanted your help collecting biological samples to keep an eye out for any, new alien threats on the horizon. Any of those missions call to you? Any chance to bag some bugs, right? Well, I can provide. Let me just check my logs. Okay, these coordinates should get you to your first target. There. These missions are straightforward. Proceed to the location, kill the critter before it can do any more harm. Just be smart out there. Don't want you getting banged up too bad on your first hunt. Super et ultra, Captain.
Well, well, if it isn't the United Colony's newest Class 1 citizen, you've made quite a name for yourself in New Atlantis. In fact, the higher-ups want to thank you for your dedicated service by giving you one of the nicest pieces of real estate in the city. It's a premium penthouse at the top of Mercury Tower. Best location in New Atlantis, in my professional opinion.
What do you say? It'll just take a second to get you registered as the owner.
Great! You're in for a real treat. It's one of my favorite apartments in the city. Okay, you're all set. Your new home's located in Mercury Tower in the residential district. You'll love the place. It has a gorgeous floor plan and an unbeatable view of the city. Now that you're an owner, I'm sure I'll be seeing you around town.
I'm glad I finally caught up with you. I'm from the Trackers Alliance. We have a proposal for you. No. Well, at least not as far as we're concerned for the moment. Good. Because what I'm about to tell you could change the course of your life. The Trackers Alliance has been following your exploits and believe you have what it takes to join our ranks. You're being invited to our new headquarters in Aquila City. There you'll meet with Agent Number 1. If you decide to consider our offer, they'll guide you through our initiation process. I'd expect you do. There's a reason for that. It used to be on a remote planet in a remote part of the galaxy. Agent Number 1 decided that it would be better if we had more of a public presence. So we purchased the old McCall estate and turned it into our headquarters. If you have any inclination of being a bounty hunter, then this is the best deal you're going to get. I'm not here to convince you. I've just been instructed to deliver the message. Your questions would be best answered by Agent Number 1 at the HQ. What if you do? Well, I would hope that you'd seriously consider our offer. It doesn't matter to me. You're free to make your own choices. I found you, I delivered my message, so my job here is done. There will be time for introductions later, assuming you decide to join us. But until then, there's really no need for me to share that information with you. Okay, then. I suppose we will. I'll be heading out soon if there's nothing more. Remember, Trackers Alliance HQ in Akela City. Speak to Agent Number 1.
You have another story for me? Of course you are. Why wouldn't you be? I swear you're either a trouble magnet or something. So, SysDef finally, and against all odds, really triumphed against the Crimson Fleet. In their own backyard, no less. How were you involved? So what do you do for an encore? So, the Vigilants went toe-to-toe with everything the Crimson Fleet could throw at them. And somehow, almost miraculously, they captured the key. The key itself. I've confirmed that with many sources. Anything to add? Oh, so the standard happy to be part of the team boilerplate. I can type that quote in my sleep. You have to feel good about how everything turned out. Commander Ikande is being hailed a hero. And SysDef's popularity is at an all-time high. Your thoughts? That's a common refrain. He was respected before this, but now? And that's all I need. You really do lead an extraordinary life. And as a, well, possibly embarrassing personal note, thank God for you.